Hello, everybody. We are the UW and LCV student project on extreme weather impact on climate action swing states.
My name is Sofia Berkowitz.
I'm Idail Garcia.
I'm Sam Klime.
I'm Mia Pardini. I'm Belle Pearson.
And I'm Joash.
The League of Conservation Borders is a nonprofit organization that works to build on political power and protect people and the planet. Its work revolves around public policy, primarily working and holding elected officials accountable, as well as mobilizing and organizing communities. They were really helpful during this process. They gave us examples to follow, met us bi-weekly, and reached out consistently to check in. We were able to get really creative and organize our infographics. We were all able to choose our images, color schemes, and we had free flow of creation when creating text messages.
So our main tasks for this project is that we started off with 5 main swing states. We created one-pagers for the volunteers at LCV, which they would distribute to help inform people about these extreme weather trends and what they can do about it. This is extremely important with states that could go either way in the election because this helps to inform voters about how climate change is impacting extreme weather. Those who were working on this was Sofia, Joash, Belle, Sam, and Mia. We also created text messages that were more personalized to reach a larger audience, which was done by Idail, who also took the lead on the presentation.
When working together, our group made sure to divide the work equally. Everyone would attend meetings, and if anybody would have to miss, we would take notes for those who couldn't make it. We also helped each other edit each other's work and bounce ideas off each other for our infographics. We set goals and due dates. We consistently talked to each other in order to stay up to date. Overall, throughout the quarter, we all kept a constant contact with each other in order to achieve our mutual goals.
So how did our work here intersect with course material? We had 3 main vocab words from the course that we think this intersected with the most. The first was systems thinking, as our one-pagers helped the recipients who received them understand how climate change and extreme weather were all in this big system and how policy could affect that. The second was leverage points, as we were using natural disasters to encourage climate action, which could help create something much bigger. And then we also were starting off with communicating what had already happened, and then we shifted to using the precautionary principle to inform people about how this could get worse. Well, the 2 main skills that we think we learned throughout this process is how to contact and communicate with broader communities and how to translate research and our other academic skills that we are honing in classes like this into actual real world action.
We created text messages in order for the LCV to reach out to community members on a more personal level and let them know what is going on in their community during these election years.
Alrighty, the 5 action states that we focused on for the one-pagers were Virginia, North Carolina, New Hampshire, Nevada, and Pennsylvania. The swing state I was assigned to create a one-pager for was Virginia. So this is my one-pager for Virginia. We wanted to include essential, very basic information about how climate change is affecting communities in Virginia. We wanted to make the connection between social impacts and climate change very clear. So I started by talking about recent climate events in Virginia and how they connect to climate change, such as rising sea levels and higher frequency of severe weather events. For coastal communities, sea level rise due to higher temperatures from an increase in atmospheric carbon dioxide clearly has many ecological, social, and economic implications. We also wanted to highlight how different communities are more or less vulnerable or resilient to the effects from the changing climate. So we wanted to spread awareness about the disproportionate effects of climate change in all of our swing states, but particularly when it comes to Virginia, the flooding in communities around Hampton Roads. Legislation is at the heart of LCV's mission, so we agreed that a brief overview of recent climate policy efforts be included in all of our one-pagers. Swing states are generally pretty anti-climate policy, so it's important to spread awareness about the policies that are in place or policies to fight or advocate for. And lastly, there are some actions for people to take. We made sure to emphasize volunteering with LCV and being very active in the community, but voting and spreading awareness is also essential, especially in Virginia and other swing states. So I will turn it to North Carolina now.
Hi everyone, I'm Mia. My swing state is North Carolina. And here's my one pager. So North Carolina is having a rapidly changing climate. Climate change is leading to increased flooding, thunderstorms, and hurricanes are happening more frequently and with more intensity. And the graph I included also shows the frequency of billion-dollar disasters and how it's increasing. And the resilience and vulnerability section was important for me to include because increased weather variability is negatively impacting communities of color and coastal communities. And these coastal communities rely on particular weather conditions for their economy, especially regarding their agriculture and fishing industry. And the climate policy section highlights the Inflation Reduction Act, which LCV North Carolina highlights as an essential piece of climate policy. In addition to that, Executive Order 80 and 246 were both created recently, and they both emphasize the commitment to transition to clean energy and economy. And lastly, the call to action highlights how we need to get involved, and this is through volunteering with LCV North Carolina, supporting disproportionately impacted communities, and voting. Now on to the next state.
Thanks, Mia, for that information related to North Carolina. Now we move further up the coast to the Granite State, New Hampshire. Assessing risk as a social construction of environmental uncertainty is a continual process within a changing climate. By beginning the one-pager with pertinent information related to the number of extreme events and the ways in which climate change is exacerbating these extremities, I can position the necessity of action by the LCV within the state. Policy connected to the 2022 Inflation Reduction Act included climate pollution reduction grants, awarded through the completion of a primary climate action plan and a comprehensive climate action plan due in 2025. Tailoring the contents of this plan to the environmental services of the state is integral, as wildfires are the most imminent extreme event within the region associated with climate change. These events as a whole are caused in part by human interference and waste management. What can be identified as an energy paradox, as New Hampshire has been able to place greenhouse gas emissions onto a negative trend relative to their 2005 counter level. All the while greenhouse gas emissions are dropping, energy consumption remains unchecked, further showcasing the necessity for the LCV within New Hampshire. By communicating to prospective and active volunteers about community events such as the monthly Foss Beach cleanup and a litany of park cleanups, a stronger political collective will be substantiated. Climate pollution reduction grants can be awarded through the federal government's $4.6 billion allocation, given that solutions incorporate the experiences and expertise of those communities overburdened by the impact of climate change, directly challenging the ineluctable asymmetric principle. And now we move on further to another swing state, this one further west.
Hi, my swing state that I was focused on is Nevada. So the one pager that I started for this is focused on the state. And so we started off with just highlighting the recent climate disasters that there are in order to grab attention and kind of tell people why this matters, because climate change can be a super abstract concept, especially for swing states. And so focusing on what has actually happened can give them a reason to care. Next, we move to how climate change has actually caused this by showing the increasing temperatures, which has led to more common heat waves, worsening wildfires, and more severe droughts, which is a really, really big issue in Nevada, especially. Next, we move on to resilience and vulnerability. And for this one, I split it up by the specific risks and which communities would be most impacted by them, because those risks are such a big part of life in Nevada, and also in order to make this a more immediate environmental justice issue. Then we have some related policy, and Nevada doesn't have a ton of specific climate policy, which is what makes this such an important swing state for LCV to focus on. And so by bringing attention to what there has been and what more federal policy there is, it sets up for a lot of the main goals of LCV and can set up for people to get more involved in voting, which is really important. We next go to the what can we do, which is the call to action. It's the main point, and it's a way for the volunteers and the recipients of these one-pagers to take actions against the growing temperatures and climate change. And then we use some photos that LCV took at their events to kind of make this a super real and concrete and organized issue, and show that this is something that has been worked on in a lot of different places. And we can move on to the next state.
Hi, everyone. I'm Sam, and I chose to do Pennsylvania for my swing state. So to begin, I wanted to emphasize the main issues that climate change is causing for Pennsylvanians, which are primarily flooding and increased temperatures. Both of these issues are actually causing a variety of problems, some including worsened air quality, agricultural losses, worsened allergies, and much more. Then I kind of wanted to explain to the average everyday citizen who does not know a lot about climate change, like how the science actually causes this. So I just kind of explain how greenhouse gas emissions are trap heat in the atmosphere, which then in turn warms the surface. These higher temperatures then lead to an increase in precipitation, which can cause flooding. Following that, I wanted to emphasize the importance of environmental justice in combating climate change, as often minority groups and low-income families are disproportionately affected by major weather events. And finally, I wanted to end with some potential policy initiatives moving forward, encouraging Pennsylvania voters to urge their state government to make polluters pay for carbon emissions, and also urging the state government to adopt zero emissions vehicle rules, which would increase the electric vehicles produced in Pennsylvania. So what can we do? We want to emphasize that there are multiple ways that we can hold legislators accountable by staying active in the community. Some things you can do are volunteering with LCV and other political nonprofits, spreading awareness through protests, rallies, and sharing on social media, contacting your elected officials, and most importantly, voting for a climate policy that matters to you. And this can be on a federal or state level. So what were our key takeaways? Throughout this project, we all learned a lot from our research from each swing state and how current policy efforts can mitigate climate change impacts in battleground states. We also learned how to successfully work as a group throughout the course of 2 months, constantly keeping in contact with each other and communicating our needs and wants. Lastly, we learned how to work with an NGO, attending meetings with them on a consistent basis, and ensuring that all of our mutual goals were being met for a time period that worked for all of us. And we just wanted to thank everybody so much for listening to our presentation today.